the speaker. All praises to Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, the merciful and the beneficent one who creates the world to the all mankind. May salat and salam be with our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who has guided us from the darkness and lightness in the world. Respectable to the chair of STEM Research Center, University of Shah Kuala, Bapak Irwandi PhD. And then honorable to our speakers, Dr. Dorothy and Dr. Halim. Welcome, doctors. And then the honorable to all participants of this webinar. So my name is Wiwit Artika. I'm one of the moderator for our today's webinar. I'm very pleased and to see you here and welcome all of you to this webinar. So this webinar will talk about STEM learning for distant education. So we're gonna have two sessions. The first session will be filling with Dr. Dorothy and the second session with Dr. Halim. So before we start our first session, let me introduce our first speaker. We have Dr. Michael K. Doherty. He is a professor of STEM education and the director of innovative career education at the University of Arkansas. He earned a BS, MS, and EDD from Oklahoma State University. Dr. Doherty speaks nationally and internationally on STEM education, technological literacy, technology and engineering education, problem-based learning, and curriculum development. Dr. Doherty was awarded a Gerhard Salinger Award for enhancing STEM education in 2019 and the Mary Margaret Scobie Award for promoting elementary STEM in 2019. Dr. Doherty also is the author of 29 books and book chapters, and he also wrote 50 journal articles. Currently, he serves as the Life Chair for the Mississippi Valley Technology Teacher Education Conference and the chair of the International STEM Education Association. So without further ado, I would like to please Dr. Doherty to give the presentation. Time and place are yours. And please the audience provide a piece of paper, blank paper and pen or pencil. Thank you. Please, Dr. Doherty.
Can you see the?
Yes, doctor.
Okay.
So do you want to make it in a slide? Okay, perfect.
All right. So, well, thank you so much, Dr. Artika. I appreciate the invitation, and I look forward to talking with you all tonight, or I guess it's morning there. It is 19:09 here. It's 7:09 p.m. in the evening. So, but anyway, good morning, Indonesia. I'm happy to be here, and it's good to see Dr. Artika again. I haven't seen her since she departed Arkansas a few years ago. And so I'm excited to talk to you all about what I know of STEM. It's been my passion for many, many years. And I work with educators of all levels, from primary school through university level, in regard to STEM. And probably there's some of you that have never heard of Arkansas. So this, if you see, this is an outline of the United States, and you can see in red, Arkansas is right in the middle of the country, the lower middle of the country. And I'm about right here. So anyway, I just want to go ahead and get started, and then we can take some questions at the end. And I'm sure you have experiences that you can share as well. But first, let's just kind of make sure we're all on the same page as to what STEM means. Of course, it stands for science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. But there are a number of people who have some confusion about the T, the technology. And I just want to say right up front that the technology in STEM is not meant to imply that instructional technology like computers and cell phones and projectors and that sort of thing, it's meant to be bigger than that. It's meant, by technology, we're discussing anything made by humans is technology. So it could be a pencil, it could be an automobile, it could be anything that's not natural to the world. So science is a study of the natural world. Technology is the study of the human-made world. And likewise, engineering is meant to be a broader term also, like the act of engineering, like engineering a new product, not necessarily the profession of engineering, but rather the act of engineering. And of course, mathematics is, the study of a symbolic language for representing values. So anyway, in our STEM program, we believe that it's an integrated field, meaning that it can be multiple subjects taught simultaneously. You can teach science, technology, engineering, and mathematics at the same time, or you can bring in other subject matter as well. But one of the things that's really emphasized in STEM is the collaboration among students, that ability to communicate, to solve problems, to think critically, to be creative. And we believe that STEM is a subject that's important for students regardless of what their eventual career path may be. They may not go into science or technology or engineering or mathematics, but we believe that understanding STEM makes them better problem solvers, makes them better collaborative workers, makes them more able to be cooperative and to communicate with others. We believe it's a field that's important regardless of whether it's a direct route to an occupation. So it's preparing for life. It prepares students for life regardless of the profession, teaches them to think critically and creatively, and provides them with known strategies for solving the problems that they're going to face. With the advancement of technology on our planet, who knows what technology is going to look like in 10 years? Nobody's really sure because it multiplies so rapidly. If we just taught students how to work on particular devices and particular machines and particular technologies, those technologies may be completely obsolete by this time the student gets out of school. So rather than teach them to use particular technologies, we need to teach them how to be critical thinkers, how to solve problems, regardless of the technologies involved throughout life. So I work primarily with people who are going to be primary school teachers and middle school teachers. And what I'm trying to prepare those teachers to do is to teach STEM in a creative way. But unfortunately, we still have a lot of schools where they aren't doing this. While STEM is catching on greatly in the United States and other countries around the world, there's schools still focus primarily on minimizing creativity, focusing primarily on tests and grades and college admissions, and sometimes creativity gets excluded. So I'm a big advocate of making sure that creativity, problem solving, critical thinking are always in the center of what we do in STEM. And sometimes teachers only reward those behaviors in class that are connected to factual competence, memorizing skills, thinking logically, and those are not invaluable things, but there's more than that. We need to, in this technological age, we need to prepare students who have problem solving skills, who can communicate, who can collaborate, who can work in cooperative teams. And those are important things that we want to emphasize in STEM. So critical aspects of STEM are to prepare individuals capable of developing new solutions and better decision. Just simply increasing science and mathematics capabilities not enough. We can do that, but we need to make sure that we are exposing students to the way that math and science is used in the real world. And we can do that by providing the students with experiences centered on design, innovation, engineering, technology to increase those students' creativity, inventiveness, ingenuity, and imaginative capabilities. Those are the things that really influence gross national product. A real famous futurist named Alvin Toffler said back in the 1970s that we can't retain our standard of living in any country by taking in each other's wash. In other words, what he's saying is, if I wash your clothes and you pay me for it, and you wash my clothes and I pay you for it, nobody gained anything. Nobody gained any increase in gross national product. We have to produce products and goods and services that other people want to purchase in order to generate wealth and to maintain a standard of living. And so we want to create students who are innovative, creative, inventive, have good ideas, can solve problems, can create new products that people want. And these are the things we're trying to foster in a STEM-centered learning experience. So what can STEM offer learners? Opportunities for interdisciplinary experiences in STEM, where they see where the subjects are used outside of the classroom. I know that when I was in school and when my children were in school, one of their biggest complaints was, I don't know when I'm going to use this information that they're sharing in class. And that is something in STEM we really work hard to avoid. We want the students to be very clear that what they're doing in class relates directly to things that they can see out the window of the school. If you can't make a clear connection between the content you're teaching in school with what happens outside of life in school, it makes it very difficult for the students to be motivated, and it also makes it hard for you to justify what you're teaching. So what we can do in STEM is more engagement, getting the students engaged in real world problems. Real world meaning that the student can easily see how they would use this outside the school. Less lecture, more group activities, more problem-solving teams, more ill-structured problems. When I see ill-structured, what I'm talking about there is many times in schools, we focus too much on problems that only have one solution. And the teacher knows what the answer is, and the students are just trying to determine what answer does the teacher want. And in STEM, we want to focus more on problems that have multiple right answers, where the students are more concerned with developing an innovative answer than a right answer. So that's an ill-structured problem. And that's the kind of problem that you face every day outside of school. You know, when you're trying to think of something to have for dinner, you know, there's not one right answer to that. It depends on what ingredients you have available, and that helps you determine what you have for dinner. So that's an ill-structured problem, and that's the problem that most people face all day long. So when we develop STEM challenges and STEM problems, we want them to be ill-structured, more than one right answer. That helps build creativity and critical thinking. We want in STEM, we want there to be more opportunities for students to work in teams and to collaborate and to cooperate, because this is really important. Increasingly, we live in a world where nobody gets to work in isolation. Even teachers have to collaborate with each other. And teaching is sometimes one of the least collaborative fields, because we go in a classroom, we shut the door, and we're kind of by ourselves. But that's not the case in most places. Most of our students will leave school and they will get an occupation where they will have to be able to work with others. They will have to be a good leader, a good follower, a good member of a team, be able to collaborate and communicate and contribute in positive ways. We can teach a lot of those skills in STEM. So the traditional classroom, this is a picture taken probably in the 1940s in America. This is what a traditional, very, very traditional classroom. And it doesn't look like very much fun to me at all. It looks like it would be very tiresome to be in this classroom. But what I'm saying here is STEM cannot be effectively taught using traditional methods. And by traditional methods, I mean just lecturing all the time and giving the students answers and then asking them to apply those answers. So we have to think of some different ways to apply content. And this slide shares with you some differences between traditional teaching methods and STEM teaching methods. So in traditional teaching methods, the teacher is at the center. They're dispensing the information and the students are responding. Whereas in STEM, the students work in small teams. They're given a problem to solve and they work in small teams and they discover and they do research and they work collaboratively. Whereas in traditional methods, the students usually work alone. So the teacher gives an assignment and the students work alone to complete homework and complete quizzes and tests. Whereas in STEM, the students usually work on a real world problem in a team and they're striving to collaboratively solve a problem. So you can see the differences between the two methods, between traditional and STEM focused. STEM is much more student-centered and self-directed by the students. So why use STEM learning? Well, the research is very clear on this. The research suggests that teaching an integrated STEM class increases long-term content retention. In other words, the students remember the things that they're taught longer if it's applied. And I bet if you think back in your own life, your earliest days in school, if you think about something that you remember the learning experience so well, I bet you would be able to say that was an applied experience. We did something, we made something, we worked together and we built this model and it was great. Nobody thinks back about an early learning experience in primary school and say, I remember this test we took. It was so great. Nobody thinks like that, but people do remember activities and projects and things that they worked to collaboratively on. Those are memorable. And so STEM helps increase long-term learning content. It engages the students. Students are more active and more motivated. And lastly, it helps develop critical thinking skills. And there's a lot of research on this. Pragmatic or practical applied learning works. It works and it helps students remember things. STEM allows teachers to base lessons on real phenomena. So what's going on outside the school? What's the big issue in Indonesia today? What can we frame our lesson around? What's happening that we have this content that we want to teach. And so we look out the windows of the school and we think, what's going on in Indonesia that we could apply this to? And if you do that, you apply it to real world phenomena, the students are much more likely to engage in it. So, just something, I just kind of brainstormed some things, human cloning. I personally think it's a bad idea, but maybe other people don't. COVID-19, diabetes, alternative energy, wind turbines, cell phones, social media, all the things that societies are struggling with, typhoons, mining, fossil fuels, climate change, all those things that we're all struggling with could be woven into a lesson to make it real world. So all I'm saying is, teachers, when you develop a lesson, always ask yourself, how can I make this real world? How can I make my students understand that this is part of life? This is not an isolated lesson we're teaching in school that they can't even understand how it applies to the real world. They'll see it immediately in my lesson. When I taught middle school, I had this student whose parents owned a pastry shop, a bakery. And he had determined very early on that when he finished school, he was going to work in his parents' bakery, and eventually he was going to take over this bakery. And so every day when I would have a lesson ready, his name was Stephen, and Stephen would say, how can I use this to help make pastries? How can I use this to make donuts? Every day he made me answer that question. And it taught me a valuable lesson early in my teaching career, is that I always needed to justify why I'm teaching things and how it applies to the real world. And I think it's an important thing for the students. They're much more motivated and much more engaged if they see a real purpose for what we're learning in the classroom. So what do STEM teachers do? The biggest challenge for teachers is to develop problems, develop challenges where the students have to combine problem solving and the content that you want them to learn. So you identify content that you want them to learn, and you develop a problem that they can work as a team to solve, that forces them to gather research on that content, to use that content to solve the problem. So that by doing that, the students develop critical thinking, communication, assessment, and inquiry skills. But your job is not to deliver every piece of content they need, but your job is to develop a problem that forces them to go find the content and use it that you want them to learn. Because guess what? If students have to go dig out the information, and they have to study, and they have to gather information and apply it, they'll remember it. If you just give it to them, if you just give them the answer, they won't remember it, not very long at all. That's not how the brain works. And so we want them to struggle with it. We want them to maybe fail a time or two before they get it right, And so that's why we always give them chances to try to solve a problem. And then if they don't, we give them a chance to fix the mistakes and go back and solve it again. So that's how you do in life. If you've ever had a failure, a lot of my students have failed taking driving tests. And so they've gotten an automobile and they're learning how to drive, and they failed. And then they're very motivated to go take the driving test again and do better. And by having that failure, it gave them the motivation to work harder to pass the second time. So anyway, you don't have to always fail, but you do want the students to struggle with it, and that helps them retain the information. So in STEM, we place more emphasis on critical thinking, problem solving, leadership and teamwork, ethics and responsibility, invention, communication skills. We also put a lot of emphasis on the engineering design process. This engineering design process, there's no universally accepted engineering design process. This is just mine that I use with a lot of students who are going to be primary school teachers. And that is, when I give them a challenge, the first thing they do is they ask, what's the problem? They try to get some clarity into what am I being asked to solve, and then imagine solutions, develop a plan to solve the problem, create a solution, and that might be making a model or a prototype or a working device. Test it to see if it works, and then share your results with others. That's the engineering design loop. And that, by having students follow this when they're trying to solve problems, you'll get better results, and the students will get less frustrated. So when they're really struggling, maybe at the beginning, you've given them a challenge to solve, a problem to solve, and they're just getting nowhere. Then I say, okay, I want you to give me, 5 or 6 potential ways this problem could be solved. So that's the imagine part of the design loop. So by doing that, we get better solutions, and the students are more engaged. So we're making content come alive. Here you can see some students working on a challenge together, and by working in this collaborative way, they build experiences that are more memorable. Now, here's something kind of interesting. Neuroscience has been doing a lot of research on how children learn and remember. This has come a long way in just the last 10 years. And one thing that we've learned is the brain is designed to forget things that we don't use. So most neuroscientists will tell you that students need to apply new content, new learning information 3 times. They need to apply it 3 times if we have any chance that they'll retain it for a long period of time. Without applying it up to 3 or 4 times, that new information is quickly forgotten. And that's why students can receive information in a traditional way, take a test and do well on the test, and then 2 weeks later you can ask them questions about that content and they won't remember it, because the brain's designed to forget things that we don't apply, that we don't use. So, and it's pretty staggering, really. The research says that students you lose about 56% of content in the first hour. So you really need to apply that information quickly. They lose up to 66% of the new information on the first day if they don't apply it. And they lose up to 75% after 6 days if they don't apply it. So this is just my way of telling you, if you teach something that's something you want the students to remember, you have to have them apply it. And you really need to have them apply it in multiple ways. So that's why we do problem solving in STEM, because we want them to apply this new information. So just one more slide to look at the differences between traditional learning and problem-based learning, or STEM. In traditional learning, the students are usually told the information right up front, and then they're asked to memorize it, and then they're given assignments to see if they remembered it. And in problem-based learning, or STEM, we give them the problem first. We don't always give them all the answers. We give them the problem. They have to go find the answers themselves. And by discovering those answers, they have had an experience. They have applied it, and they tend to recall it. So then they solve problems using it, and that's another application. So just a complete different way to gather information. So now just switching just a little bit, I want to talk about some strategies for teaching STEM at a distance, because it is a challenge, and I've been challenged with it in the last year and a half with COVID as well. We're back in the classroom here now. We have to wear face masks and that sort of thing, but we're back in the classroom. But for a year and a half, I was teaching hands-on learning, applied learning at a distance, and it's pretty tricky. It's difficult to do. So I have some suggestions that I've learned that helped me. And here's 3 strategies that I'm going to explore just a little bit. One is instructional immediacy, developing at-home design challenges. So I give them challenges that they have to work on at home. maybe with a family member, because I still want them to work in a team. And last, involving family members. So they might have a sibling or a little brother or sister that works with them to solve the problem. So let's look at each of these first. Instructional immediacy is just something that's really helpful if you're teaching on Zoom, and particularly with small children, younger children. It's just the behavior that brings the instructor and students closer together. There's nonverbal and verbal instructional immediacy. First, let's look at nonverbal, and that's just things like gesturing, having some variety in your voice, smiling at students as much as possible, having a relaxed body posture, moving around if you can. If you can have a wide angle camera and you can move around in the classroom, that's good. And trying to, be a little more relaxed. I found that if I dress down a little bit, I'm still professional. I still have a jacket on and stuff, but maybe not a tie. And I find that a more relaxed atmosphere online works for me. So verbal immediacy behaviors. Here's just some things that I found work. Calling students by their name instead of just pointing at them on Zoom and things like that. You pretty much have to do that, and it actually helps. Using inclusive pronouns like we and us, thinking of us as a team instead of individuals. Starting class with some unrelated small talk, just talking to students about things that are going on in their lives to show them that you care, and then giving them lots of feedback is another strategy that works pretty well. Research on immediacy. If students like the teacher, they're more likely to like the subject. And that's just, you all know that, you probably know that. If the student really likes the teacher, they probably really like the subject as well. Students exhibit more competence, caring, and trust when they like the teacher and they like the class. Teachers receive higher student evaluations. Students are more motivated. It's more interesting for the teacher as well. Students are more assertive and responsive, and attendance and participation is improved. And students are more willing to communicate outside of class. So those are some good things. There are some negative things with immediacy, and this is when you have a more relaxed class, sometimes students will say things on a remote class that they would never say sitting right in front of you. They sometimes take advantage of that. And sometimes they, dress inappropriately as well. And so some students resist immediacy, and you have to make some adaptations. But overall, I have found it to be a pretty effective tool for delivering STEM at a distance. Some principles of good practice related to immediacy: encourage contact between students and faculty inside and outside of class. It may still be at a distance, but sometimes I'll have a Zoom that's open for all the time, so students can connect with me and we can have a one-on-one meeting almost any time. So I have a Zoom that I use for the whole semester, and we can use that for individual discussions. 2, develop exchanges and cooperation among students. Encourage active learning, and vary the methods that you use. The other thing that we can do that helps in remote learning environments is to remember those 21st century learning skills. And if you're not familiar with 21st century learning skills, this is some research that was done about 10 or 15 years ago now, but the researchers went out to industry and asked them, what would the perfect employee, what kind of characteristics and knowledge sets and skills would the perfect employee have if they came to work for your company? And this was an international research, And what they found really surprised everybody, because these companies didn't say, we want them to have, you know, massive amounts of computing skills, coding. We want them to be able to use all the machines we use in our company. No, that isn't what they said. By and large, the 21st century learning skills research proved that what companies really want are the 4 C's. They want employees who can communicate professionally. They want them to be able to think critically. They want them to be creative, and they want them to be able to collaborate with others and get along with other people. So that's something that I try to incorporate into all of our STEM classes, but it's particularly important in STEM at a distance. And so some strategies that I use for that is I have at-home challenges. I ask students to form design teams with family members, roommates, neighbors to complete some of the challenges that I give them. And real early on, I realized that sometimes I ask students to do things at home when they don't have the tools to do it. And so I actually had them make a tool. This is a drill, and I actually designed this, and I don't know if you can see it, but I had them build this. I sent them a kit with some of the parts, and this is just things I cut out myself at home, and they had to make a drill so they could use the drill. And so part of the challenge was to make a drill. And I had them form teams with their parents or siblings and they made the drill together. And then I had them solve all kinds of other challenges at home. But I was still able to get that hands-on. I was able to get them to work collaboratively in a team, even though we couldn't come to school and work as a team at school. I have them videotape themselves doing things, and have them send me a YouTube video of them doing things that I want them to do, and I evaluate those. You don't have to use YouTube. You can use yourself. They can use a cell phone, and the only thing I found is if they use an iPhone, sometimes it doesn't communicate very well with other technologies because Apple blocks their phones from their videos from working very well with other technologies. And then I always ask the students, I have the students develop a tinkering or a making materials kit at home. So when I give them challenges, they have things, and I supply these sometimes if I need to as well. But this is something that's been really helpful to keep students solving problems and doing hands-on learning. Just some other suggestions here. Developing international partners with other similar schools where students in your school and students in another part of the country or in another country can be working on the same problem. We did one in my classes called the Global Design Challenge, and I gave this design challenge to my students and students in 3 or 4 other countries, the same challenge. And if you want this year's challenge, I do this every year, but this year's challenge was for primary school students to develop a device that can be placed in the restroom or the loo or the toilet. And the idea is that when students wash their hands, it tells them how long they've been washing their hands. Because the guidelines on COVID is you should wash your hands.
Sorry, sir, your microphone is mute.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
How long have I been on mute? What happened?
Your microphone is mute. And now is LED.
Now you can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, exactly, sir. Yes.
Okay. How long was it on mute?
I think like 5 seconds, sir.
Oh, okay. Not long?
No, it's just like seconds, yeah.
Oh, I was just hoping I hadn't been talking to myself this whole time. Now it doesn't want to move. Okay, so this is an example of what the kit looks like. It's nothing expensive. It's just markers and plastic spoons and straws and chopsticks and, you know, just recycled materials that they can use to solve a problem. Some strategies. One thing that I want you to be aware of is that making and doing is a big, important part of STEM. And there's really three things that I think are critical to STEM, and that is having real world challenges. So the students can see the real world in the challenges that you're trying to solve in your class. Two, using that engineering design process that I talked about, where it helps students go through steps to solve a problem. And third, teamwork, learning to work in a team, an effective team. So one thing that a lot of people have some difficulty with is knowing how students and people learn. And the truth is, we don't learn the way most teachers think we learn. We humans really learn just enough to complete a task. So let me ask you this question. When is the last time you purchased a new product and then read the entire owner's manual before you used the product? Nobody does that. I mean, you buy a new phone, you don't go read all the information about it before you try to use it. You just start trying to use it. And if you have trouble, then you go read the owner's manual. And that's what people do. Very, very few people read all the information and then try to use something. But in school, sometimes we like to have students read all the information and then apply it. That's not how people learn. It's not how the brain works. So humans really typically learn by failing a few times. That's reality. And so teachers, I think, we need to allow them to fail sometimes without penalty. So if they're solving a complicated problem, learning some new content, let them fail and then do it again to get it right. Dr. Artika, how much time do I have left?
I think you still have like 40 minutes, I guess.
Okay.
No, sorry, 15 minutes. 15 or 20 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, good. Just a few other things. The three modes of learning. This is kind of important to remember. We have the inactive mode of learning, and this is the first kind of memory that young children develop. And it's developing thinking based on physical actions. It's how you learn to ride a bicycle. You didn't get an instruction manual and read all about bicycles and the history of bicycles and the inventors of the bicycle. No, you got a bicycle and you tried to ride it and you probably crashed. And then you got on it again and you rode again and you got your balance and eventually you learned to ride it. But you didn't read about it first, take tests on it, make lists of important parts of it. No, that's not how you did that. You rode it probably the first day you got the bicycle. And that's called the inactive method of learning. And the second is the iconic method of learning, and that's learning from images, using photos, illustrations, using our senses like hearing, touching, smelling. And then the last mode of learning is symbolic. And this usually comes later in life, maybe middle school up, where we develop language skills. We understand codes and symbols. We maybe learn another language. And so these are the three modes of learning that we need to keep in mind. And the purpose of education, and in particular STEM education, is not to impart knowledge, but to facilitate thinking and problem solving. Learners best remember when they have discovered something, not when they've been told something. So we need to make our STEM classes about discovery, not about dispensing things. Therefore, teachers should design lessons that lead students to discovery. And the best way to do that is problem solving. So a few more things. In STEM, we reject the notion that students should learn passively first, and then after they've learned it, they apply it. No, we want them to apply it first and use that need to know to solve a problem. Unapplied knowledge is knowledge shorn of its meaning, and we quickly forget it. We like to start with a problem or a challenge, and only then students are ready to learn the new content because they have a need to learn. It's like if you're a reader and you like to read books and literature and things, you don't pick up a book where you know all the answers before you start reading the book. Part of the power of reading is the challenge, the mystery, trying to figure out what's the mystery here. And that's the same with education. Okay, so now I want to do a brief exercise. Okay, so for this exercise, you'll need a sheet of paper. That's all. And when I'm going through this, don't ask any questions. I'm just going to go through the instructions and you just try to do your best given my instructions. Even if you're unclear, just proceed. And so when I want you to do this with your eyes closed. So when I tell you to, close your eyes and we'll start this exercise. So here we go. Close your eyes. First step, fold the paper in half. Fold the paper in half. Second step, fold the paper in half again. Third step, tear off the bottom right corner of the paper. Tear off the bottom right corner of the paper. Turn the paper upside down. Tear off the other bottom right corner. Okay, we're finished. Hold up your paper and see compare it to what everybody else is holding up. Hold up your paper where people can see it in the camera. All right, I see quite a few different ones. What do you notice? What do you feel like when you see that your paper looked different than other people's paper?
I feel the new experience.
So what a lot of people think first is, oh, I must have done this wrong. I must have failed. I must have not interpreted the instructions correctly. But the point of this is there's more than one right answer to almost every problem. And even though yours is different, it could be still correct. And this is something that you can do with your students. If you have students who are just obsessed with getting the answer that you want, not the answer that they want, try this exercise with them. And then it works better if everybody can see it, but have them hold it up and say, well, why does yours look different than yours? And yours is different than yours. And then talk to them about, in most cases, when we solve problems, there's more than one right answer to it. And just because yours looks different doesn't mean that it's incorrect. I mean, there are lots of really innovative products that the reason they're innovative is because they look quite different than everybody else's. So try that exercise at home. So, just kind of recapping here, in STEM, we asked learners to perform first. We moved right into the performance, even if it's simplified, even if it's clumsy, because we want them to discover it, not to be told it. We postpone the formal things until students have had a chance to perform. We understand that a known or established idea must be made more like discovering an idea rather than having it explained by an adult. Here's just a few samples, and you guys have done STEM, and so you know what STEM problems look like, but these are a few examples. These are more primary school, but students develop expertise on frogs by investigating frog habitats, observing frogs, and then they develop an exhibit brochure for a local zoo. That could be a STEM project. You can see that it has that real world connection because they're developing something for a zoo, but they're also investigating frogs, which is part of their curriculum that they need to understand biology. So here's one. An elementary student learns about health, nutrition, and consumerism by creating a new restaurant that offers healthy and appealing foods. They develop their own advertising campaign for the restaurant by developing convincing commercials. So it has a real world flavor to it, but it also teaches them about nutrition and health. So here's one more. Algebra students learn about equation by investigating one aspect of a bicycle, using bicycle-related relationships such as a wheel diameter and coasting distance. They apply math formulas to analyze how bicycles function. They share their findings and make recommendations to a local bicycle company to make bicycle improvements. So it has a real world connection, but it also has a math connection, and it also shows the relationship between real objects and mathematics. Math is sometimes the one that's very difficult to make a real world connection with. So anytime you can do that, it's a plus. So last slide here, just benefits to the learner. Learners engage in an active role while they're learning new content in STEM. Learners develop and practice applying content. Remember, applying is critical because we want the students, we know about brain research that if they don't apply it, they don't tend to remember it. We use a variety of learning strategies so that the students aren't bombarded with the same techniques every day. Learners see new content to different contexts, increasing memory, and learners see the relevance and meaning of new content by connecting with the real world. So those are some thoughts, and at this point, I'll take questions. I'm going to stop this share real quick. So if you have any questions or comments, I'd be more than happy to address them.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Doherty, for your speech. Maybe I will summarize a little bit about what Dr. Doherty has presented. So di sini Dr. Doherty menyampaikan bahwa pembelajaran STEM itu, penekanan pada teknologi itu bukan segalanya tentang aplikasi teknologi devices ya, atau bukan penggunaan proyektor, bukan penggunaan komputer ya, tapi itu lebih luas, yaitu pemanfaatan segala yang didesain oleh manusia ya. Nah, kemudian pada STEM juga itu kita menekankan pada proses engineering ya atau rekayasa. Nah, kemudian STEM program ini dapat menciptakan ya meningkatkan kemampuan individu ya untuk menyelesaikan masalah yang berkaitan dengan kondisi dunia yang sebenarnya ya. Nah, untuk supaya kita mempunyai kemampuan untuk mengembangkan solusi yang baru dan decision atau keputusan yang tepat ya. Nah, kemudian dalam pembelajaran jarak jauh itu biasanya kita bisa menggunakan imediasi atau penyegaran ya dalam bentuk nonverbal dan verbal ya. Nah, kemudian mempromosikan learning pembelajaran lingkungan misalnya pembelajaran STEM itu bisa dilakukan oleh guru ya pada saat kondisi pandemik, yaitu dapat dilakukan dengan misalnya guru menginstruksikan siswa untuk membentuk tim di rumah ya dengan tetangganya, dan mungkin bisa di-upload di YouTube, kemudian Flipboard atau misalnya TikTok ya yang lagi beken ya. Nah, kemudian juga dianjurkan untuk bisa bekerja sama dengan international student juga. Yeah, maybe that's all that I can summarize for Dr. Dautisal. Still a lot of things that maybe you want to ask to him, yeah. Okay, I would please to siapa tadi? Mr. Akum, please, Mr. Akum.
Thank you, Mrs. Wiwit. I want to ask to Mr. Michael Dokti. Mr. Dokti, I want to ask, in Indonesia, some subjects such as mathematics, physics, or science, and others are carried out separately. How do we, as a teacher in Indonesia, be able to apply STEM in our school? Thank you, Mr.
Okay, so
okay.
go
right,
ahead.
Please, yeah. Please, Dr. Doti, if you understand the question, you just directly answer it.
I think he's asking about in traditional in Indonesia, the math is separated, and yeah, that's true here as well. Particularly at the upper grades in high school. In the primary school, they're not separated. They're taught by a common teacher. All subjects are taught by a common teacher. But I don't have any thoughts that you're going to be able to just replace that, because nobody's probably going to let you replace that. But what I would suggest is, any chance you can, in a mathematics class, you can teach other subjects. So if you really want students to understand math, you have to give it a real world application. And to be honest with you, that's the thing that's missing in most mathematics classes. Students have a very difficult time finding the application of mathematics, because it's not something they go home, especially advanced mathematics. It's not something they go home and use every day. So if the teachers can collaborate, maybe the science teacher and the math teacher can collaborate and come up with a problem where they can integrate science content and math content, and the students use both of those to solve a problem, that is a real benefit. And so what I would say, even if you're the STEM teacher and you're trying to encourage, students to do STEM, also encourage the other teachers to try, just try an integrated lesson once in a while, maybe once or twice a semester, so that the students can see that connection between disciplines. Because really, schools are the only place in society where we separate math from science, from history, from religion. It's the only place. Everything else is together. When you walk out of school, you don't say, okay, I'm going to do math for the next hour, and then I'll do religion, and then I'll do history, and then I'll do something. No, we do it all it's all mixed up. And I think that we need to do more of that in school. I hope I answered your question somewhat.
All right, Pak Akum, is it okay? Yeah. All right. Okay. The next question is from Ibu Susanti. Silakan, Ibu. Ibu Susanti sudah raise hand-nya. Please, Ibu Susanti.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Okay. I would like to ask about the stage of STEM instruction in the in pandemic situation. The first stage is ask question, right? So how the teachers can assess the quality of the questions of the students? Because the professor said that the issue is come from every home challenges of every student. So how we as a teacher can assess the quality or the opportunity for the student to conduct that question for this STEM project. Thank you.
Okay, so basically your question is about assessment when they're at a distance, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so one thing that I do, particularly in the last year and a half that I have done extensively, is I come up with a list of things that I want them to address in the assignment. A rubric. Are you familiar with the term rubric?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so a rubric of the things I expect them to do and learn in the assignment. And so then I have them, after they've finished the challenge or the problem, I have them videotape a presentation to me where they address how they solve the problem, what their product looks like, and then they have to address everything on that rubric. So I tell them I'm going to be looking at that list of criteria that I expected you to achieve in this challenge when I'm watching that video. So in some cases, they don't even have to turn anything into me other than the video, because I'm just watching the video, just checking off. Yep, they did that. Yes, they did. Nope, they missed that. And so it speeds up. And I know there are a lot of teachers who think, well, it's much more difficult to evaluate students in a STEM class because you're looking for science, you're looking for math, you're looking for different disciplines. But the truth is you don't have to have science in every lesson, math in every lesson, engineering in every lesson, and technology. If you get 2 or 3, you're doing pretty good, really. I don't think you ought to just beat yourself up to always have math in every lesson, science in every lesson, technology in every lesson, engineering. And sometimes maybe it's more important to bring in literature or religion or, something else that's more pertinent to that problem. But anyway, so if you use at a remote, I use a lot of video and pictures. So if they're building a device, I had them take pictures along the way. And sometimes I'll say, okay, I want a picture of a solution that didn't work. And then I want some pictures of the solution that did work. And so I'm forcing them to try more than one potential solution to a problem. So hopefully I covered some of your question there.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. The great
You're
answer.
welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for Ibu Susanti. For the next question, I would like to please Tengku Azhari. Silakan Bapak Azhari. So Dr. Doty, he is the one who is the alumni of the University of Arkansas too. Yeah, please, Azhari, if you have question to Dr. Doty.
Thank you. Good evening, Dr. Michael Doty. So my name is Tengku Azhari. I actually graduated from University of Arkansas back in 2008, some years ago. So I have
what subject what were you studying?
English.
College of Education and Health Professions. I did secondary educations. Yeah.
Okay, that's my college. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, in English major, right?
English
yeah.
major. Yeah.
Did you have Dr. Jolliffe?
No, I didn't have him actually.
Okay.
So great to have you here with us. So I have one question. It's about curriculum versus target. So when teaching in Indonesia, we have like set of curriculum which we have to follow, and then we have which give us target to complete within each session until the end of semester. However, and on the other side, we also have challenge with the students' ability to understand and grasp the understandings of what the teacher explains during the class. This creates sort of, vice versa, like teacher has to follow the curriculum. On the other hand, they also have to see the students' understanding. Sometimes teacher, they have to complete the curriculum. On the other side, they have to also consider their students' understandings. How can you see the how can we balance between following the curriculum and also looking up to our students' understandings? Thank you.
Yeah. So are the curriculum, is it a goal or a standard that they have to achieve? And so here's the information they must know, or does it doesn't say you have to teach it this way, right? I mean, can as long as you get to the end goal of what they should know and do and be able to do, can you get there any way you want? Yes.
I can say yes, yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that honestly, sometimes people think, okay, if I have all this information to cover, the only way that I can deliver it is through a lecture. And because there's too much information for me to cover using creative lessons and interesting methods. But it's not always true, because sometimes you can develop a problem or a challenge that the students covers the same information, but you don't dispense it as a lecture. You say, okay, we're going to use this information to solve a problem, and you're going to have to dig through this information in order to adequately solve the problem. And so I say that you can still use challenges, you can use problems, you can use teams, but you're delivering the information in bulk, and the students have to pour through it in order to solve the problem. It's not always true. Sometimes it's too much and it's ineffective, but honestly, don't think that it's because I have these standards or this curriculum I have to address, I can't do anything innovative. It's not always true. And sometimes teachers use it as an excuse not to do creative things because it's too much. And I'm afraid they won't pass the test at the end unless I lecture it to them. But keep in mind, if you lecture information out to students, they forget over 50% of it in 1 hour. So what do you have to risk? Because I promise you, if you apply it and you have them build something or make something using this information, they will remember it more than an hour. They will remember it probably a long time. So that's my suggestion. I saw somebody else put a question in the question box, in the chat box down here. Are you going to address those also?
Yeah.
Or should I?
Or maybe you can just directly answer the first
Well, I saw
question.
someone had asked, is STEM more effective in elementary or middle school? And so one thing that there's some really recent research out there that suggests, it doesn't suggest, it proves that students have made a decision about their interest in and ability to do math and science by age 10. So let me say that again. Students have decided by age 10 whether they like science and math and whether it will be a part of their future by age 10. So if we don't have them excited about math and science by age 10, we will never get them. It's over. They've already decided. And I will promise you, go find an 11-year-old. Just go find an 11-year-old. Ask them if they like math. Ask them if they like science. They have an opinion. It's already formed. And this research suggests it is very unlikely to change after age 10. So that's a long way to go for me to answer your question. But the truth is, if we don't do something in primary school, there's a good chance we'll never get them interested in math and science. And so we have to do stuff in elementary school. So I say as early as possible, do some STEM challenges where they explore, basic physics or some basic mathematics, and they have to use those things to solve a problem. Because if they can learn that, hey, this science and math is kind of interesting. I think I can do this. And it's particularly true with young women, because young women tend not to choose math and science. And a lot of times it's because they made that decision by age 10 or 11, and we never got them back. They said, that's not for me. I'm going to stay away from that the rest of my life. And they do. So I would say as early as possible, get them in STEM.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dorothy. I hope Ms. Mutia understand what is Dr. Dorothy has explained everything, because Bu Mutia said that he has a problem with the connection, so that's why he texted the question. So all right, the next I would please
sebagai MC-nya orang Indonesia.
Okay, I would like to please Dr. Irwandi to ask the question. Okay. Dr. Irwandi, please.
Good, thank you. My name is Irwandi. I am head of the STEM Center in Syahwa University. Yeah? And then Dr. Vivek introduced me with you related some recommendations for the letter before. Okay, my question first, most people say the STEM should have a product. Yeah, is this correct? Maybe sometimes, for example, I have like a STEM inquiry-based learning that investigate in the physics. We can call it the STEM also without having product, because not always in the physics experiment have the product. Okay, and then the second, you said the STEM is integrated, mathematics, technology, engineering, all integrated. And regarding the curriculum now, the mathematics, physics teach separately. And then, what do you expect in the future of the curriculum, including how to teach the teacher? Maybe teacher or maybe the third question, maybe we need to introduce STEM department for those the teacher have the skill in the STEM with involved in many subjects they can teach together. Okay, I think this is my question. Thank you.
I had some audio problems at times during.
Dr. I can explain to you, Dr. Dorothy. Okay. Yeah, the first question is STEM have to create the product at the end, or what? And then the second question is about what is the prospect of teaching? Yeah, teaching math, science, and technology in I don't know, like how. Gimana Pak Irwandi? How to what is the prospect? Because in Indonesia, no. The curriculum in the future. Curriculum in the future.
Okay.
Saya nggak dengar juga. Pak Irwandi, saya nggak dengar. Mungkin bisa di teks ya.
Ini terdengar.
Oke, ya.
Okay. I forget to put this. My question, the first question is STEM always create product? Because some activity, for example, make a physics experiment, we can call it STEM activity.
Yeah, okay, Pak, itu udah.
Activity. And then
second question,
the curriculum, for the current curriculum. In the school, they teach physics and mathematics separately.
Yeah.
And then we want to introduce STEM to integrate it, the physics and mathematics together. How do you think they will change the curriculum in the future? And including for the teachers. We have to introduce the STEM teacher, and then could we prepare like department of the STEM in the university to prepare the teacher in the STEM subject?
Okay, I understand. Dr. Roti, apologize for this. So the first question is about is STEM is always about creating a product, and then the second question, what do you think about the future curriculum? Because right now we teach science, math, and in separate ways. So, is there any possibility that the curriculum will be changed? Like, you know, there's a STEM curriculum, and then the third one is it possible to make a collaboration classroom? Yeah? There is a math teacher there, and then there is a science teacher there. Like they're gonna teach together in one classroom. So this is the question, I guess.
Yeah. Excellent. Good questions. Good questions. Challenging questions. So first, the easy question, and that is, does STEM always result in a project or a product? And it doesn't have to, but I think it's better if it does. I think that the students find it more realistic if they develop a real tangible product. And that could be a simple product, but it's a product that brings together all the things that they're studying, the content, and gives it a reality. Sometimes that's called project-based learning. So you they build a project to solve the problem. And there's also problem-based learning, and that could be just solving a problem. And it could be a theoretical problem or a paper-based problem. But I tend to prefer the ones that, where they really they build something that works. And I think that the students are more engaged with that. The second question of the STEM curriculum, there are schools now in several around the world who are now trying to teach STEM as a common curriculum, and the teachers in some cases in some schools they have a STEM classroom where the students rotate through it, and then they take all of the rest of their regular classes, but they rotate through the STEM classroom, and it's an extended time period in there, and they have science and math together in this classroom in engineering. And then in some cases, some schools that I've worked with actually have collaborative co-teaching. So they have 2 or more teachers in the classroom at the same time teaching the STEM classes. And to be honest with you, those they have marginal success. Teachers, every teacher thinks they're better than the other teacher. So it's a bit of a challenge. Sometimes they clash a little bit, but ideally that would be very good. And probably the best model I've seen in public schools like elementary and middle school is when they have a STEM teacher at the school, and her job or his job is to, they cycle students through their classes, but their job is also to go out and work with the math teacher and go out and work with the science teacher and help them teach interdisciplinary courses in their own classroom. So helping the math teacher bring more science into their class, or helping the science teacher bring more history into their class, or more languages, so it doesn't always have to be science, technology, engineering, mathematics. It can be other subjects as well, history or language, that sort of thing. So hopefully I answered your question.
All right, Dr. Irandi, I guess we need to promote a STEM classroom in our curriculum. So there's gonna be like it stand alone, but it will be rotate with the other subjects. All right, for the next question is coming from Muzakir. He is a teacher. So he has a question about what is the differences between problem-based learning and STEM problem-based learning. I mean, maybe STEM based on problem-based learning. Is there any differences about both of that model, I guess?
So project-based learning doesn't have to be STEM. And frankly, I don't know if you caught this with me. It doesn't always have to be STEM. It could be any subjects that are integrated. I think integration is just really powerful. And so it could be 3 subjects that are not STEM. It could be languages and religion and art. It can be any subject, but project-based learning can be used with any subjects. So you look at the curriculum and you think, how can I teach this where the students have to complete a project to solve it and to use the content of the curriculum. And that can be used in any subject. It's just particularly useful in STEM. We like to use it in STEM because it's a great tool for STEM. And as I said in the presentation, brain research tells us that if the students apply it, they tend to retain it. They tend to remember it. Okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So there is a, maybe I have a question, Dr. Dorothy. So
Okay.
usually teachers in Indonesia is really like to combine to the STEM and PBL. So the problem is some of them still confused. Where should they put this the syntax? The syntax means the step of doing the instruction. It is good in the lesson plan, or it is better in the student worksheet?
Now say that again. Start the beginning again. Say that again.
So like oh yeah, I have to forget to explain that a curriculum in America is different definition to the Indonesian definition. So in American curriculum is a lesson plan, the plan that we the instruction planning, yeah. So so how the teachers in Indonesia, is it I must say, which one is better to apply this STEM PBL into the curriculum or the instruction planning, or into the student worksheet? Usually, like you teach me like in the curriculum, right? But we have different things here. So
yeah. Well, I think either way. You know, I mean, if you know what you want the students to learn, if you can put together a worksheet that causes them to apply that, to force them to use that content from the curriculum, it's good. Yeah, that works.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Dorothy. So the next question is come from Ibu Trisna Amelia. So the question is, is STEM learning able to overcome conceptual understanding?
Well, it can be, and it can help with that. I mean, it's not a miracle drug, but it does help. And the thing that helps most is the students applying it, because sometimes a concept is very abstract and you have difficulty understanding it until you apply it. And somebody, like I said earlier, if somebody just described how to ride a bicycle, you probably wouldn't ever learn to ride. You have to actually try it. You have to apply it. And by applying it, like we do in STEM, sometimes it's the best way to clear up a misunderstanding or a conceptual misunderstanding.
All right, thank you, Dr. Dorothy. So is there any more question to Dr. Dorothy from the audience? All right, so Dr. Dorothy, maybe I have a question. This webinar is talk about the effective ways to teach STEM in distance learning, because we are in pandemic time. So except that the things that you have explained, yeah, what kind of what kind of activities that it's gonna be easy for teacher to apply the STEM activities in during the instruction, because it's really it's really hard to give instruction, to the student, like it's not face-to-face classroom time. Maybe that's my question.
Yeah.
Maybe you can give more example, more example, like the STEM activities that, we can over to our teachers here.
Yeah, well, you had my introduction to STEM class, and
yes.
We did a lot of projects in there. We made a lot of things, and so one of the things I've done is I've taken a lot of those and developed at-home kits. And so I send them just in a plastic bag. I just put some materials in there, and that will help them solve the problem. And then I asked them to work with a parent or a sibling to solve the problem at home. And so it's worked pretty well. You know, you just have to be careful not to put just the materials that you would use to solve the problem, because if you put some additional things in there, sometimes they'll surprise you and really develop a creative solution that you would have never considered. So I mail things, you know, I put things in the post and mail it, and or I have them come by and I put it in a box outside my office. And I have them come by and grab it so that I don't even have to interact with them, because some cases we weren't supposed to, or I mail it if I need to. I mean, there was a time when the students were all over the world. They all went home, and we were still teaching. So I was sending things everywhere. Or I would give them a list of materials that they could find locally, recycled materials, things like that. And I try to keep it very inexpensive if I could, because I don't ever want someone to say, oh, I couldn't do STEM because too much. So I always say that you can teach STEM with nothing. I mean, use recycled materials, you know, you don't have to spend a lot of money. And sometimes people that spend a lot of money, that's the worst thing they did, because now they're all locked into these expensive pieces of equipment and they have to teach a certain thing a certain way. So I mailed things to them, a lot of things to them, and asked them to build things at home that solve problems and it was all designed to force them to learn particular concepts.
All right, so I guess here teachers should be creative too, yeah, to manage the instruction, yeah, during the pandemic time. So is there any more question to Dr. Dorothy? All right, so there is no more question, Dr. Dorothy. So we finished earlier for tonight, yeah, tonight. Yeah. So I remember what Dr. Dorothy have said to me. Please be a teacher that can create, yeah, or can design the instruction that your student will remember it after 30 years. That's really valuable things, yeah, that I can remember from you. So thank you so much for Dr. Dorothy for the speech and the talk. It's very valuable and very stunning talks for tonight or this morning. So as the moderator, I would like to apologize if I have did a lot of mistakes. So thank you so much for your attention, for all the audience. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. All right, thank you, Dr. Dorothy. So we are going to the next session. Maybe
thank you.
Pak Azari can lead the session, please.
Thank you, Dr. Michael Daughtry. Thank you. Selamat pagi semuanya. Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to proceed with the next sessions. We have here Mr. Dr. Abdul Halim, MSc, lecturer from Syekh Kuala University, will be presenting for our next sessions. However, Bapak Abdul Halim will be presenting in Bahasa Indonesia. So let me introduce a little bit Dr. Abdul Halim, MSc. So he is lector. He was born in Aceh Besar, January 7, 1964. Dr. Halim has graduated from doctorate degree. So he got vast education background from Syekh Kuala University for his bachelor degree. And also he got his master degree in ITB Bandung. And he completed his doctoral degree in UKM, Malaysia. His PhD dissertations was about pengembangan ujian diagnostik and modul pembelajaran mandiri mekanika kuantum untuk mengatasi miskonsepsi. So he has quite extensive research interests and backgrounds, and also has done a lot of research in the fields of STEMs. So without further ado, tanpa membuang waktu lagi, we would like to invite Dr. Abdul Halim as presenter for our next sessions. Kepada Dr. Abdul Halim, waktu dan tempat kita persilahkan. Pak Abdul Halim? Oh iya, ini sepertinya slide-nya sudah muncul, Bapak.
Baik, terima kasih. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Baik, terima kasih atas waktu yang diberikan. Sesi yang kedua ini kita akan bicarakan tentang pendidikan STEM. Pendidikan STEM ini via e-learning. Isi daripada PPT saya ini lebih fokus kepada pendidikan di perguruan tinggi atau ke tingkat mahasiswa. Tadi sudah banyak kita mendengar presentasi dari narasumber pertama. Dia banyak berbicara tentang STEM pada tingkat SMA, SMP, kalau tepat kita, dan juga SD ya. Jadi sekarang kita akan lihat bagaimana STEM ini bisa diajarkan melalui e-learning, khususnya pada masa pandemi dengan pembelajaran jarak jauh. Kalau kita lihat di tingkat SMA, SMP ini banyak menggunakan berbagai macam software untuk pembelajaran. Tapi di perguruan tinggi ini lebih populer, apalagi di Indonesia ini lebih populer menggunakan e-learning dengan dipadukan berbagai macam bantuan software yang lain. Baik, kita lihat sebentar tentang ide dasar kenapa
juga
ini
jam dulu, Pak.
dipendidikan. Kita sudah tahu selama masa pandemi ini berbagai macam aturan sudah berlaku, termasuk menjaga jarak. Ini akan kita sudah tahu dampak yang lebih besar dalam dunia pendidikan ya. Sehingga pembelajaran ini sudah bergeser ke arah disebut dengan online teaching. Jadi pembelajarannya menggunakan online, khususnya untuk pembelajaran STEM, itu juga telah bergeser dari dulunya sifatnya praktikum face to face, sekarang berpusat pada siswa dengan bantuan beberapa fasilitas e-learning. Kemudian lebih jauh lagi untuk generasi yang baru ini, dia pembelajarannya sudah melakukan kuliah jarak jauh. Sehingga kalau kita lihat tujuan transfer ilmu itu sudah terbatas. Jadi dengan berlakunya pembelajaran jarak jauh ini, khususnya untuk praktikum, kita mengenal istilah virtual lab, itu justru transfer ilmunya hanya dua saja, conceptual knowledge dan procedural knowledge. Sementara yang faktual ini memang siswa itu atau mahasiswa dia harus mencari sendiri. Nah, kemudian kita khususkan untuk desain virtual lab karena ini merupakan pusat simulasi pembelajaran sebagai pengganti real laboratory. Jadi untuk pendidikan STEM ini eksperimennya seluruhnya dilakukan melalui virtual lab. Jadi kalau kita lihat diagram di samping ini,
bisa dibuat full screen, Bapak?
Kenapa?
Bisa dibuat full screen, Bapak, biar nampak mungkin.
Ini sudah oke?
Terima kasih, Bapak.
Ya. Baik. Yang sebelah kanan ini kita lihat, yang ini adalah pusat simulasinya. Jadi virtual lab ini lebih kepada demonstrasi oleh guru. Kemudian dilanjutkan oleh aktivitas yang dipandu melalui internet kepada siswa. Boleh siswa itu mandiri atau kerja kelompok, tergantung dari model pembelajaran yang dilakukan. Kemudian ada juga keuntungan daripada virtual lab ini dengan menyediakan media e-learning, di mana dosen dan juga mahasiswa yang bisa menggunakan apa yang disebut dengan interdisiplin, pendekatan interdisiplin. Artinya si mahasiswa ataupun dosen ini bisa mengadopsi berbagai macam sumber pembelajaran digabung menjadi satu untuk menyelesaikan masalah yang diberikan dalam sistem perkuliahan atau pembelajaran. Oke, kita langsung saja. Kita akan lihat beberapa contoh software atau perangkat lunak yang digunakan untuk mendesain pembelajaran STEM ini. Salah satunya yang sudah terkenal dan akrab, ini biasanya orang matematik menggunakan, disebut dengan GeoGebra. Jadi GeoGebra ini dia bisa mendesain gambar sesuai dengan keinginan dan juga tugas yang diberikan oleh dosen kepada mahasiswa. GeoGebra ini sama juga dengan aplikasi yang lain. Dia perlu informasi awal, data, dalam bentuk data. Jadi data ini diberikan sebagai syarat awalnya untuk menjalankan software. Apabila diberi data, kemudian diproses oleh GeoGebra, dia akan keluar dalam bentuk gambar. Bisa gambar, bisa grafik, bisa desain bangunan, sesuai dengan keinginan si pengguna GeoGebra ini sendiri. Oke, baik. Kemudian yang berikutnya apa yang dikenal dengan MATLAB. Ini saya kira sangat akrab dalam dunia teknik, juga sains, menggunakan MATLAB. MATLAB ini posisinya dalam pembelajaran e-learning, dia hanya sebagai demonstrasi yang dilakukan oleh guru atau dosen. Kemudian setelah itu diberikan kepada mahasiswa atau siswa. Tetapi untuk siswa, MATLAB ini tidak begitu akrab. Makanya saya katakan dari awal, jadi desain pembelajaran STEM ini lebih fokus kepada tingkat perguruan tinggi, mahasiswa. Jadi MATLAB ini sama juga seperti program sebelumnya, dia perlu kepada data awal. Data awal itu sesuai dengan keinginan atau permasalahan yang diajukan. Kemudian MATLAB ini juga perlu kepada semacam teori dasar, pemahaman si pengguna. Dia harus tahu juga rumusnya, kemudian simulasinya, syarat batas berlakunya rumus. Nah, kemudian diberi data, kemudian di-run. Ketika di-run, dia akan menghasilkan beberapa bentuk sesuai dengan filter yang disediakan. Nah, kalau kita lihat di sini sebelah kanan, ini salah satu filternya. Ini semua kuantitas di sini bisa dirubah sesuai dengan keinginan si pengguna. Artinya apa? Ini saya beri contoh, dua contoh untuk desain rangkaian listrik. Di desain rangkaian listrik, di sini ada sainnya, yaitu ilmu fisika khusus tentang listrik. Kemudian juga ada perhitungan matematiknya, dan juga ada desain rangkaian yang disebut dengan apa? Electrical engineering. Ini masuk untuk pembelajaran dengan menggunakan MATLAB. Oke, yang berikutnya adalah MATCAD. MATCAD dengan perkembangan yang begitu cepat. MATCAD ini sudah lama, dari tahun 1995, 1994 itu sudah ada MATCAD dengan versi yang awal ya. Sekarang sudah begitu cepat berkembangnya MATCAD ini, sehingga MATCAD ini bisa digunakan untuk mendesain alat-alat baik di engineering ataupun di civil engineering ataupun aerospace. Dia bisa menggunakan MATCAD karena begitu besar perkembangannya. Jadi permasalahan MATCAD ini biasanya dipakai dalam dua bidang, sains dan engineering. Sains dan engineering ya. Sekali lagi, sains engineering ini dia perlu juga model matematik. Diberi teorinya, menghasilkan rumus matematik, kemudian disuplai datanya. Jadi MATCAD ini tidak akan jalan walaupun rumus model matematik sudah ada kalau tidak ada data. Jadi perlu kepada data. Nah, data inilah yang menentukan produknya kayak apa, seperti apa produk yang diinginkan. Itu tergantung pada data yang dimasukkan. Nah, sangat populer katakanlah dalam fisika, dia biasanya bisa menghasilkan satu gelombang dalam 2 atau 3 dimensi. Atau di sini saya beri contoh, satu contoh getaran yang terendam. Dalam engineering bisa didesain seperti ini. Jadi banyak yang bisa didesain dengan menggunakan MATCAD ini. Karena MATCAD ini bermain dengan rumus, kemudian ada data yang simulasi diberikan, kemudian otomatis, jadi dia akan mengeluarkan data yang diinginkan. Termasuk juga kelebihan MATCAD ini, dia bisa menyelesaikan persamaan. Persamaan yang analitik, bukan numerik, bukan hasilnya, tapi bisa menyelesaikan dalam bentuk analitik. Artinya persamaan menghasilkan persamaan. itu bisa diatasi dengan MedCat. Ini beberapa langkah yang sering digunakan untuk menggunakan MedCat. Nah, ini pun MedCat ini jarang diperkenalkan di tingkat SMA ya, kecuali SMA yang sudah favorit, sudah bisa membaca grafik, membaca data, itu mungkin diperkenalkan. Nah, tapi kebanyakan menggunakan ini adalah mahasiswa khusus bidang sains dan engineering. Baik, yang program berikutnya ini yang saya kira yang sangat familiar. Nah, ini di semua baik bidang sosial ataupun eksat, ini mengenang dengan istilah Excel. Excel ini ternyata kalau kita pakai dengan sungguh-sungguh, dia bukan hanya sebatas perhitungan kali kurang, kemudian rumus yang diberikan dalamnya, tapi bisa kita masukkan rumus sendiri dari luar untuk mendesain. Nah, dan kita bisa munculkan gambar juga di halaman itu sesuai dengan keinginan. Kawan kita ada dari ekip kimia, Pak Ibnu Khaldun, itu sudah mendesain dengan menggunakan Excel ini tentang campuran reaksi. Dia bisa membuat gambarnya, bisa menggambar bagaimana cairan itu bisa bercampur, bisa naik. Ini hanya dengan menggunakan Excel saja. Nah, jadi Excel ini sebetulnya kalau bisa didesain, kalau bisa dimanfaatkan, itu menjadi satu media pembelajaran yang sangat efektif untuk pembelajaran STEM ini. Baik, kemudian berikutnya yang sudah terkenal, AutoCAD. Ini dunia engineering, sudah terkenal. Sebetulnya AutoCAD itu bukan hanya di dunia engineering, tetapi orang fisika untuk rangkaian listrik, dia juga bisa menggunakan AutoCAD. Nah, AutoCAD ini satu program yang sifatnya juga membutuhkan data, kemudian bisa didesain gambarnya. Nah, kita sering lihat gambar-gambar yang seperti gambar yang 3 dimensi, seperti gambar asli, itu semua produk daripada AutoCAD. Dia melibatkan pengetahuan juga sama, kemudian ada rumusnya, kemudian juga bisa didesain gambarnya. Nah, jadi sekarang sudah terkenal dalam dunia civil engineering, itu AutoCAD sudah begitu populer. Karena bisa mengatasi pembuatan gambar, arsitektur gambar dengan waktu yang sangat cepat dengan menggunakan AutoCAD. Untuk pembelajaran STEM ini satu program yang sangat efektif. Jadi kalau mahasiswa sudah tahu menjalankan, jadi si dosen itu mudah saja. Dia bisa demonstrasi sebentar, kemudian dia berikan kepada mahasiswa tugas mandiri, apakah kelompok atau mandiri, dengan memberi beberapa ketentuan, ini sudah jadi pembelajarannya. Oke, kemudian fokus kita e-learning, karena ini yang sering dipakai di perguruan tinggi. E-learning yang versi terbaru, sebetulnya e-learning yang berbasis modul ini, dia hanya menyediakan 2 sumber saja. Aktivitas dan sumber pembelajaran, 2 saja. Nah, kalau kita lihat buka e-learning itu, untuk sumber pembelajaran, dia beri ruang untuk kita letakkan sumber. Misalnya buku ada tempatnya, kemudian file dalam bentuk file PDF, PPT ada tempatnya, kita juga bisa simpan dalam bentuk folder, atau bisa juga dibuat Google Meet, bisa juga. Ini semua diberi tempat untuk meletakkan sumber pembelajaran. Bisa juga video, misalnya kita tarik dari YouTube, kemudian kita masukkan di sini, ini diberikan. Itu satu. Yang kedua terkait dengan aktivitas. Aktivitas semua belajar e-learning itu sifatnya juga seperti ini. Nah, sifatnya kalau kita aktivitas itu,
ada pelangi, berarti ada bidadari yang sedang mandi, ya kan? Kayak gitu juga dulu kalian kan? Ya. Kalau dia sedang belajar IPA, saya tahu bukan bidadari yang ada di sana, tapi ada yang biasa saja. Kayak IPA kita dapat apa sesuatu, Adila? Mana Adila? Nah. Oh, Adila, berdiri Adila.
Kita lanjutkan. Di e-learning itu disediakan juga ruang untuk aktivitas, termasuk di situ ada kuisnya, kemudian daftar hadirnya, kemudian juga ada kegiatan virtual programming, virtual grooming. Jadi semua program yang kita berikan tadi, kalau kita lihat ini sebetulnya fitur ini bisa ditambah. Jadi orang-orang yang memahami tentang e-learning bisa ditambah fitur ini sesuai dengan program yang kita pakai. Misalnya seperti simulasi PET. Itu yang sering dipakai oleh guru dan juga mahasiswa. Kemudian program-program yang kita tunjukkan tadi itu bisa ditambah di aktivitas ini. Tapi aktivitas bawaan sendiri dari e-learning ini ada namanya virtual programming. Virtual programming ini bukanlah satu virtual yang siap digunakan. Tapi kalau kita buka fasilitas dalam virtual programming ini lebih kepada bahasa pemrograman. Kita harus tulis produk yang kita desain itu dengan menggunakan bahasa C, bahasa C++, Fortran dan sebagainya. Ini lebih kepada penulisan bahasa. Jadi untuk kegiatan seperti program yang kita perkenalkan sebelumnya yaitu Virtual Lab, MathCAD, AutoCAD itu harus dilakukan melalui Zoom meeting. Jadi demonstrasi oleh dosen, kemudian mahasiswa juga sudah punya program itu, kemudian baru diberi tugas untuk kerja mandiri atau kerja kelompok. Ini fasilitas yang sudah ada di e-learning seperti itu. Baik, kita lihat satu. Kita buka yang virtual programming. Ternyata kalau kita buka virtual programming itu, dia hanya menyediakan satu tempat, yaitu program yang berbantuan modul ini sudah ada program yang diisi di dalamnya. Tinggal kita pakai seperti Fortran, kemudian C, C++, itu sudah ada dalamnya, tapi sifatnya tetap menulis bahasa pemrograman. Di sini saya katakan penulisan program dalam bahasa C, Fortran dan sebagainya ini digunakan untuk mendesain bahasa pemrograman. Jadi bukan satu tempat untuk kita lakukan virtual lab dengan menggunakan software aplikasi seperti yang kita katakan tadi, seperti AutoCAD, MathCAD, bukan seperti itu. Nah, untuk software-software seperti itu, nah biasanya kalau bisa ditambah, kita adopsi ke situ. Kalau tidak bisa, terpaksa kita pakai melalui Zoom, kemudian dalam bentuk demonstrasi. Oke, kemudian berikutnya, ini satu contoh, sumber itu bisa juga dijalankan di tempat e-learning itu. Di sini saya beri contoh satu, dengan menggunakan PET, simulasi, Excel, dan sebagainya. Nah, kita kalau untuk program yang mau kita masukkan ke e-learning itu, dia harus dalam bentuk file. Nah, dia bukan URL itu, tapi dalam bentuk file. File itu artinya program itu sudah kita upload, kemudian kita simpan dalam bentuk file, baru kita kita masukkan ke e-learning. Nah, setelah kita masukkan ke e-learning, baru kita bisa desain. Ini contohnya satu, saya ambil untuk electrical engineering, mendesain rangkaian listrik. Nah, jadi sini ini tampilan daripada FET simulasi. Ini bisa dimasukkan ke sini dan ini langsung hidup di halaman e-learning itu sendiri, di halaman e-learning ya. Oke, mungkin bisa saya tunjukkan di sini halamannya yang sudah kita jalankan. Sebentar ya. Saya close ini dulu.
Ini Kak, kenapa akan buat D1 aja kan? Mana? 3 juta 160.000 gitu kan. Dan penghasilan biasa itu bisa menjadi
Bagaimana Bapak Abdul Halim?
Oke, ini sudah nampak. Ini bagian e-learning, pembelajaran STEM melalui e-learning. Kita lihat di sini. Ini satu pertemuan saya desain untuk electrical engineering. Jadi di sini kita upload program tadi. Di sini kita masukkan program. Ini saya masukkan yang software untuk PhET simulasi. Boleh juga aspek yang lain ya. Nah, yang ini kalau kita buka, dia akan berjalan di layar ini sendiri. Nah, yang ini bisa didesain. Nah, seperti ini. Ini sudah ada, ini tinggal dijalankan. Ini hanya satu fasilitas untuk mendesain sesuai dengan keinginan guru ataupun dosen memberi tugas kepada mahasiswa. Di sini fasilitasnya sudah ada semua. Tapi kekurangannya yang PhET simulasi ini, dia tidak bisa dimasukkan komponen yang lain. Kita harus menggunakan fasilitas yang ada di dalam program ini. Nah, misalnya untuk hambatan, itu sudah ditentukan oleh software ini saja yang bisa dipakai untuk mendesain rangkaian. Artinya dari segi mendesain rangkaian ini sangat terbatas, karena fasilitas yang digunakan tidak bisa dirubah, kemudian kadang-kadang fasilitas yang disediakan ini tidak sesuai dengan keinginan kita. Nah, ini satu contoh yang sudah kita adopsi. PhET simulasi itu satu software yang bisa dipakai, sifatnya aplikasi, ke dalam e-learning. Nah, ini langsung dipraktekkan. Yang ini disimulasi oleh dosen, kemudian diberi tugas kepada mahasiswa. Mahasiswa bisa mendesain bentuk rangkaiannya sesuai dengan keinginannya. Ya. Satu contoh. Baik, kita lanjutkan. Nah, yang tadi sama kita lanjutkan sudah ya. Oke, ini tempat tadi. Kemudian sama juga ini linknya yang saya katakan tadi untuk rangkaian listrik. Ini link yang kita berikan tadi sudah kita tunjukkan. Nah, inilah beberapa contoh bagaimana e-learning itu, pembelajaran STEM itu bisa menggunakan e-learning. Jadi intinya adalah pembelajaran e-learning, pembelajaran STEM melalui e-learning itu hanya bisa diberikan oleh guru dalam bentuk demonstrasi. Artinya ini punya keterbatasan sehingga ilmu yang bisa ditransfer hanya dua. Yang pertama terkait dengan konseptual knowledge, yang satu lagi adalah prosedural knowledge, dua saja. Jadi kepada mahasiswa diberikan tugas, boleh kelompok atau juga individu, untuk mendesain produk. Jadi kuncinya kalau kita lihat di sini hanya mungkin 3 bidang ilmu yang bisa tercover: matematik dengan berbagai macam operasinya, kemudian ada ilmu tentang sainsnya, dalam hal ini fisikanya, kemudian pengetahuan, dan produk desain itu menggunakan teknologi IT yang ada. Oke, saya kira itu saja pengetahuan yang dapat saya share. Lebih kurang mohon maaf. Billahi taufiq hidayah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Terima kasih banyak Bapak Dr. Abdul Halim atas penjelasannya yang sangat baik tentang STEM via e-learning, khususnya pada tingkat mahasiswa. Bapak Abdul Halim telah banyak menjelaskan tentang berbagai software yang digunakan dalam e-learning seperti virtual lab, simulation software, ada MATLAB, kemudian MathCAD, Excel pada tingkat yang advance, pada tingkat yang tingkat tinggi, kemudian penggunaan AutoCAD, e-learning, dan virtual programming. Nah, saya pikir ini sangat relevan sekali ya dengan pola-pola pembelajaran, khususnya pada tingkat pada pelaksanaan pembelajaran daring. Nah, Bapak Ibu sekalian, kita setelah sama-sama selesai mendengarkan penjelasan yang sangat baik dari Bapak Abdul Halim. Nah, kita menerima berbagai pertanyaan ya dari Bapak Ibu sekalian. Jika ingin bertanya, silakan raise hands atau dituliskan di chat. Saya melihat ada Ibu Wiwit Artika. Kepada Ibu Wiwit, waktu dan tempat kita persilakan.
Baik, terima kasih Bapak Azhari. Pak Dr. Halim, saya punya pertanyaan nih. Selama menyimak apa yang Bapak sampaikan ini, sebenarnya saya ini banyak sekali ya tertarik ya belajar Pad, terus kemudian apa tadi AutoCAD, kan itu kayaknya bukan hal yang terlalu, maksudnya bukan hal yang simple untuk bisa dipelajari oleh semua guru ya Pak ya. Termasuk saya sendiri, saya nggak bisa nih AutoCAD sama Pad itu ya Pak. Nah kira-kira selama proses pembelajaran yang Bapak lakukan, apa Pak tantangan ataupun misalnya hambatannya ketika menggunakan beberapa aplikasi ini dalam proses pembelajaran? Kalau e-learning mungkin saya agak familiar ya, cukup familiar dengan e-learning, tapi untuk yang Pad, AutoCAD, dan lain-lainnya itu saya memang belum tahu, Pak. Nah, terima kasih Bapak Dr. Halim.
Silakan Bapak.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih atas pertanyaannya, Bu Wiwi ya. Sebetulnya apa yang kita tunjukkan tadi, level pembelajarannya memang untuk perguruan tinggi ya, perguruan tinggi. Pengalaman saya ketika MedCAD ini tidak semua mahasiswa perguruan tinggi itu menggunakan MedCAD. Hanya perguruan tinggi yang relatif bagus seperti ITB, ITS, itu mahasiswanya sudah akrab dengan program-program yang saya tunjukkan ini. Nah, di Indonesia pun saya kira AutoCAD itu mahasiswa engineering semester 1-2 mereka sudah akrab dengan AutoCAD, khususnya jurusan arsitektur ya. Mereka sudah akrab dengan program ini. Sebetulnya kalau kita pelajari program ini sama semua. Dia yang pertama di dalam program itu sudah ditanamkan persamaan. Persamaan sudah ditanamkan, persamaan dasar ya. Kali, bagi, akar itu sudah ada semua. Nah, program ini kadang-kadang memerlukan data. Kalau Excel ini, dia program dipilih. Kemudian di-set datanya, masuk hasil. Nah, tetapi untuk program MedCAD, MATLAB, AutoCAD, GeoGebra, ini lebih kepada datanya dari luar kita masukkan. Sesuai dengan keinginan kita. Sementara persamaannya, kalau persamaan yang umum seperti sin, cos, tangen, itu sudah ada dalam tuh. Tinggal kita keluarkan persamaannya, kita kasih data, dia langsung baca. Nah, jadi mudah. Nah, untuk MedCAD itu lebih kepada, yang dulu-dulu lebih kepada mengeluarkan grafik. 2 dimensi, kemudian 3 dimensi. Nah, tapi belakangan dengan perkembangan yang begitu cepat, termasuk bisa mendesain kendaraan. Mobil bisa digambar dengan MedCAD. Itu sudah perkembangan luar biasa. Ya. Kesulitannya yang pertama memang kebiasaan menggunakan, itu saja. Akrab, tidak akrab ya. Tapi kalau kita buka semua, intinya sama saja. Nah, mereka semua perlu data awal ya. Dan setiap program yang aplikasi ini, dia ada panduan di dalamnya dimasukkan. Disebut dengan guided untuk penggunaan itu. Itu sudah ada dalamnya. Sudah ada menunya, menu help bantuan ya, sudah ada. Kita buka itu sudah ada cara menggunakan semua. Nah, itu kehebatan program ini. Jadi sebetulnya tidak sulit, program ini tidak sulit. Kalau kita belajar, artinya kita sudah banyak bahasa-bahasa kita kuasai, bahasa sederhana memang bahasa Inggris dalam itu. Itu kalau kita pelajari mungkin 1-2 hari sudah bisa untuk produk-produk yang sederhana. Tapi kalau disuruh buat rumah seperti mahasiswa menggambar masjid, ini butuh pengetahuan yang lama ya, dengan menggunakan AutoCAD. Nah, saya kira begitu saja Bu Wiwi. Jadi bukan suatu program yang sulit. Intinya program ini sama semua. Mereka sudah ada persamaan di dalamnya, ditanam dalam program itu. Nah, kemudian kita tinggal memasukkan data dan memanggil persamaan itu sesuai dengan keinginan. Nah, seperti itu. Ada satu klik. Oke, silakan.
Pak, kalau misalnya di aplikasi biologi sendiri, Pak, ini contohnya seperti apa? Apa kita bisa masukkan data penelitian, misalnya data hasil lab gitu, terus kita olah dengan aplikasi ini, bisa nggak gitu maksudnya?
Untuk biologi, saya agak ragu ini untuk biologi ya. Mungkin kalau PET itu sudah ada biologi, saya kira tahu. Excel juga bisa didesain sesuai dengan keinginan ya. Okay. Tapi untuk MedCAD dan MATLAB ini namanya juga matematik. Ini singkatan matematik semua ini. Jadi kalau biologi itu punya persamaan matematiknya, sudah jelas batas berlaku persamaannya, itu saya kira nggak ada masalah. Tinggal kita masukkan, kita tambah persamaannya. Mudah saja, bisa dimodifikasi sesuai dengan keinginan. Begitu Bu Wik.
Baik Pak, terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bapak, terima kasih Bu. Selanjutnya kita punya penanya kedua dari Bapak Herman Anis. Kepada Bapak Herman Anis, waktu tempat kita persilakan.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Sarif, Pak Halim. ada mungkin begini ya. Saya juga di fisika, Pak.
Oh iya, oke, silakan.
Fisika Makassar. Mungkin saya minta mungkin pandangan Bapak ya. Sekarang itu kan lagi tren kita diminta untuk mengembangkan pembelajaran case study dengan project based learning ya, untuk pembelajaran di mahasiswa. STEM sepertinya bisa memfasilitasi itu, Pak. Cuma mungkin yang menjadi bukan juga masalah ya, tapi pasti bisa dipecahkan sebenarnya. Bagaimana memfasilitasi mahasiswa itu bisa memahami konten? Bukankah seperti yang dijelaskan tadi pembicara sebelumnya itu, untuk melakukan seperti itu orang itu harus memiliki modal dulu, minimal dia paham konsep tentang, misalnya anggaplah yang pernah saya ikuti itu dia membuat pesawat-pesawat begitu ya. Dia mau melihat mana yang lebih efektif model sayapnya. Nah, itu kan dia memerlukan modal dulu untuk belajar itu. Mungkin pertanyaan saya itu, STEM itu kan akronim dari scientific mungkin ya, sains ya, kemudian teknologi. Nah, di pendekatan saintifik yang dipakai ini di kuliah ini kira-kira yang cocok itu apa ya, sehingga kan jangan sampai ada kesan kita hanya cocok logis saja, karena sudah ada misalnya teknologinya kita anggap itu sebagai teknologi. Mungkin itu barangkali Pak arahnya ke core-nya itu ke membelajarkan konten dengan STEM. Karena mungkin sepintas saya memahami STEM itu memerlukan pengetahuan awal atau sudah ada pengetahuan yang dimiliki oleh orang itu atau anak-anak itu untuk dia terapkan dalam menghasilkan sesuatu. Apakah itu nanti dalam bentuk proyek? Bukankah sebelum itu dia harus mempelajari sesuatu? Nah, di bagian mana itu? Apakah hanya apakah itu dilakukan di bagian di sainsnya atau seperti apa? Terima kasih Pak Halim. Terima kasih Pak Ansari.
Terima kasih. Baik. Terima kasih Pak Herman Anis sudah menggugah kita untuk melihat kembali definisi STEM itu ya. Saya pernah ikut kuliah umum dari Prof. Lilia dari UKM. Dia memang banyak kaji tentang STEM ya. Tentu juga kerjasama dengan USI karena STEM ini asalnya dari sana. Ternyata dia STEM ini lebih kepada satu pendekatan ya. Dan beliau mengatakan kalau 2 bidang saja sudah kita anggap itu STEM. Misalnya matematik, engineering. Ya kan, itu sudah masuk kategori STEM walaupun tidak lengkap 4 ya. Nah, jadi dalam proses itu. Jadi jelas karena kita lihat S pertama itu sains, mulai matematik, fisika, biologi, kimia, ya kan? Matematik sudah ada ruang sendiri. Sains itu kimia, biologi, fisika. Nah, boleh seperti itu ya. Itu memang karena dia pendekatan, artinya pengetahuan awal itu memang harus ada. Apakah memakai metode yang lain untuk mendapatkan pengetahuan? Kalau dengan e-learning itu kita harus kirim bahan kepada mahasiswa baca. Hukum Bernoulli untuk merancang sayap pesawat itu perlu hukum Bernoulli. Jadi artinya mereka harus baca dulu tentang hukum Bernoulli itu. Bagaimana kalau angin naik ke atas, dorongan samping, dorongan itu sudah harus dipahami. Apalagi dengan menggunakan software yang ada, ini kalau tidak ada pengetahuan dasar, tidak jalan program ini. Nah, karena base untuk menjalankan semua software ini adalah pemahaman tentang konsep yang mau dipelajari. Produk yang mau dirancang itu sudah tahu. Nah, misalnya saya katakan matematik, operasi matematik dalam program ini berbeda dengan tulisan yang biasa kita tulis. Akar misalnya. Itu ada yang menulis akar dengan bahasa dia sendiri. Ini agak susah kalau kita tidak pahami ya. Makanya konsep dasar itu harus sudah dipahami. kalau memang kita rancang LKM-nya, lembar kerja mahasiswa, itu di bagian teori dasar itu kita masukkan langsung poin tentang itu. Konsep-konsep penting yang terkait dengan produk yang akan dibuat. Nah, itu harus dimasukkan di teori dasarnya. Walaupun makanya kalau kita katakan STEM ini dipadu dengan inquiry, yang namanya full inquiry itu teori cari sendiri, untuk mahasiswa kita tidak jalan itu. Karena kita tidak kreatif. Nah, so kita beri masalah, kamu rancang seperti ini, katakanlah full inquiry, itu tidak jalan. Tidak jalan ya. Terpaksa kita kadang-kadang harus gabung dengan yang inquiry dengan yang lama punya. Kita harus ada teori dasarnya, tujuannya jelas, kita rumuskan ya kan. Seperti itu baru jalan produk itu bisa dibuat. Itu satu. Jadi pengetahuan dasar tentang bidang atau konsep yang akan atau produk yang akan dibangun satu bagian. Kemudian pengetahuan tentang cara menjalankan software ini itu satu bagian. Nah, kalau itu lebih kepada teknik ya, kebiasaan aja karena biasa kita pakai, nanti kita sudah akrab dengan program itu ya. Nah, seperti itu Pak Herman. Saya kira yang pengalaman saya juga seperti itu ya. Memang konsep dasar itu perlu. Itu memang syarat pertama ya untuk bisa mengembangkan produk itu. Jadi tidak mungkin kita serahkan ke mahasiswa semua atau ke siswa semua.
Maaf Bapak, sepertinya termute Bapak Halim.
Oh ya. Jadi tidak bisa dilepaskan ke mahasiswa itu atau siswa, dia langsung baca konsep sendiri. Dia akan mencari mana konsep yang sesuai. Dia nanti akan merepotkan. Lama nanti hasil belajarnya, suksesnya lama, produknya lama. Tapi kalau kita beri teori dasar terkait dengan itu, seperti tadi mendesain sayap kapal terbang, itu langsung kita beri teori tentang itu, termasuk juga persamaannya. Tidak ada masalah, bukan berarti dia tidak menemukan. Yang inquiry itu menemukan di produknya bisa dia buat. Nah, yang ini hanya sebagai media saja untuk membantu supaya produk itu sesuai dengan yang diinginkan. Saya kira begitu Pak Herman.
Ya, baik, terima kasih Pak Abdul Halim atas uraiannya. Berarti ada kombinasi di sini Pak ya? Ada kombinasi cara Pak.
Ya, betul lah ya.
Baik, mari kita tunggu. Tadi ada 2 yang raise hand, tapi kemudian agak hilang dari peserta kita. Silakan Bapak Ibu sekalian, jika ada pertanyaan kembali kepada Bapak Abdul Halim, silakan ditanyakan. Bapak, mungkin saya ada sedikit pertanyaan Bapak tentang ketika Bapak melaksanakan pembelajaran di kampus Pak ya. Itu apa yang paling terasa, yang sangat membantu Bapak dalam proses itu seperti apa Pak dalam pelaksanaan penggunaan e-learning ini Pak?
Oke, e-learning ini sebetulnya yang pertama saya lihat kekurangannya ya.
Iya Pak.
Dia karakter susah untuk ditransfer melalui e-learning.
Iya.
Ya, karakter tidak bisa ditransfer, bukan tidak bisa, agak susah. Kita perlu mendesain satu pembelajaran yang betul-betul karakter juga bisa ditransfer ya. Makanya kalau kita lihat sekarang banyak tulisan-tulisan e-learning itu seperti masalah karakter itu jadi masalah global. Ya kan? Masalah global baik di dunia maju maupun di dunia berkembang ya. Kalau di dunia berkembang seperti kita ini, masalah karakter kan menjadi isu nasional gitu ya.
Iya, Bapak.
Jadi e-learning itu sepertinya kurang bisa diatasi, kecuali kalau kita mendesain begitu baik ya, itu bisa ditransfer. Itu satu. Kemudian di sisi dosen sebagai pengajar atau guru, ini ada kemudahan. Kemudahannya apa? Artinya sekali kita desain pembelajaran, itu bisa kita simpan.
Yeah.
Nah, kita desain dengan baik tahun ini, tahun berikutnya kita bisa gunakan waktu untuk kegiatan yang lain. Misalnya menulis buku, menulis artikel, itu sangat mudah bisa dipakai. Tapi kita desain tahap awal ini dengan sempurna. Materinya, videonya kita lengkapi semua, termasuk LKM-nya kita lengkapi semua, setiap topik dalamnya disediakan dalam e-learning ini. Itu tahun berikutnya hanya kita update saja datanya. Mungkin contohnya itu kita bisa perbaharui. Itu satu kemudahan yang saya rasa sangat membantu dalam dunia pembelajaran dengan menggunakan online atau e-learning ya, khususnya e-learning. Itu sangat membantu. Kemudian satu lagi agak susah kita mendapatkan program-program yang berbayar. Ini program ini yang saya katakan PET ini memang gratis, Excel gratis, MATLAB ini AutoCAD ini program berbayar. Artinya kita harus beli. Mereka update setiap tahun versinya. Nah, ini bermasalah. Kalau kita gunakan uang sendiri kan bermasalah. Kecuali ada proyek penelitian itu bisa dibeli. Nah, jadi itu saya kira pengalaman ketika kita menggunakan e-learning. Jadi komunikasi dengan mahasiswa itu begitu cepat, apalagi yang model baru ini kita bisa juga menggunakan absen di e-learning. Itu jauh lebih membantu ya. Artinya mahasiswa itu bisa di mana aja, kapan saja. Yang penting kita beri batas waktu, kamu harus absen dalam 2 jam ini. Itu sudah sangat membantu kita ya dalam pelaksanaan e-learning. Saya tidak tahu apakah di tingkat SMA ini bisa diterapkan ya. Kalau e-learning itu sudah ada di SMA, saya kira bagus juga. Tapi ini memerlukan fasilitas jaringan internet dan sebagainya ya. Itu saja saya kira.
Terima kasih Bapak. Ya. Mungkin dari yang lain Bapak Ibu sekalian, jika ada pertanyaan kepada Bapak Dr. Abdul Halim bisa ditanyakan. Ini ada tidak jadi. Silakan Bapak Ibu sekalian yang lain mungkin. Saya pikir banyak hal ya karena kita memang sedang menerapkan e-learning. Jadi banyak hal, apakah aplikasinya, penggunaannya, kendalanya, tanggapan dari mahasiswa, kendala dari dosen. Ada Bapak Ibu sekalian? Bapak, mungkin kita sambilan menunggu yang lain Bapak ya. Saya ada pertanyaan satu lagi Bapak untuk Bapak Abdul. Ketika awal masa penerapan e-learning sejak masa pandemi kemarin, Bapak, tentunya ada hal baru yang Bapak rasakan, perubahan dari tatap muka menjadi e-learning. Bisa Bapak ceritakan transisi yang harus Bapak alami, Bapak rasakan, ketika Bapak harus merubah pola pembelajaran dari pola tatap muka menjadi pola e-learning. Bagaimana proses transisi tersebut, Pak Halim?
Oke, baik. Ini terkait dengan pengalaman ya.
Betul, Bapak.
Kalau saya sendiri sebetulnya e-learning itu sudah dari tahun 2016, 2017. Jadi sebelum pandemi saya sudah oke. Jadi ketika pandemi itu saya sebetulnya ya senyum-senyum aja karena sudah ready semua. Jadi mahasiswa yang ambil mata kuliah dengan saya mereka sudah akrab. Nah, ketika kuantum ya, fisika modern itu semua sudah saya set di e-learning. Dan sebelum terjadi pandemi itu saya sudah ready semua. Nah, dulunya tahun-tahun 2016-17 itu sangat mudah akses e-learning karena tidak banyak yang menggunakan. Aktif hanya berapa orang, jadi jaringannya sangat mudah cepat. Jadi ketika terjadi pandemi, Unsyah pun diberlakukan harus menggunakan pelajaran online e-learning. Ya, kendalanya tahun pertama macet. Tidak bisa diakses. Jadi semua dosen mahasiswa mengeluh. Kemudian pihak universitas dia tambah bandwidth-nya menjadi besar. Nah, tahun ini sudah oke, sudah mudah dan softwarenya saya lihat sudah diganti model baru versi terakhir. Ini sudah banyak fasilitasnya. Jadi saya menghimbau kepada dosen-dosen khusus yang perguruan tinggi, coba kita berpaling sedikit ke e-learning untuk pembelajaran dan sama-sama kita pikirkan bagaimana e-learning itu juga bisa membentuk karakter. Nah, itu harapan kita, membentuk karakter mahasiswa, sehingga betul-betul e-learning ini bisa mengatasi masalah yang konvensional. Sebetulnya dari segi penyampaian materi, sumber belajar itu unggulannya e-learning. Tetapi dari segi pembinaan karakter, ini karena karakter ini tidak bisa dibuat dengan undang-undang, tidak bisa juga dengan kartun. Dia harus dengan contoh langsung dilihat, ya kan? Dosennya masuk dengan rapi, tepat waktu, ya kan? Cara bicaranya ini harus dilihat langsung. Karakter itu perlu contoh model ya. Contoh model ini kalau dengan e-learning kan tidak bisa diganti dengan kartun atau apa, nggak bisa. Jadi saya kira itu beberapa pengalaman kita ketika menggunakan e-learning, ada sisi kelemahannya dan juga ada sisi kemudahan bagi pengajar dan juga mahasiswa. Oke.
Baik. Terima kasih banyak Bapak. Kita ada satu penanya kembali dari Ifah Sofiatul Zanah. Kepada saudari Ifah, kita persilakan. Silakan, Ifah Sofiatul Zanah. Ini silakan di-unmute dulu supaya bisa bertanya. Silakan di-unmute dulu. Biar bisa bertanya. Oh, mungkin tidak jadi. Berikutnya kita punya pertanyaan dari Ibu Susilawati. Yang sudah raise hands, kepada Ibu Susilawati kita persilakan.
Baik, terima kasih Pak Azhari. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Selamat siang Pak Dr. Halim. Ada hal yang ingin saya tanyakan terkait dengan penerapan STEM ini dalam perkuliahan. Seperti tadi yang sudah Bapak jelaskan, kita menggunakan beberapa aplikasi yang memang sudah ada ya. Sama seperti yang disampaikan oleh Bu Wiwit tadi, bahwa beberapa aplikasi yang Bapak jelaskan tadi mungkin itu memerlukan kemampuan teknologi yang memang tidak di low ya, agak high, bahkan memang middle dan high ya. Mungkin khususnya bagi mahasiswa teknologi atau teknik ya, mereka yang sudah terbiasa dengan aplikasi ini. Nah, sementara kalau saya background-nya adalah pendidikan, di mana dalam proses pengajaran dengan memanfaatkan STEM ini, kita juga berharap mahasiswa bisa mengambil lesson learn. Jadi mereka suatu saat ketika menjadi guru juga bisa mengambil bagaimana cara menerapkan STEM ini kepada siswanya. Nah, selain menggunakan aplikasi dengan high level tadi, mungkin ada beberapa aplikasi yang bisa kita manfaatkan dengan tetap mengupayakan kemampuan problem based learning pada mahasiswa bisa terstimulasi, kemudian juga bisa menggunakan project learning. Kira-kira berdasarkan pengalaman yang sudah Bapak jalani selama ini, dengan pemanfaatan e-learning tadi, ada tidak sebuah modifikasi ataupun strategi dalam pembelajaran di mana kita juga mengencourage mahasiswa kemampuan inquiry-nya terangkat atau terasah, kemudian aplikasi yang digunakan cukup standar atau biasa minimum yang itu memudahkan ya. Apalagi kalau kita berbicara teknologi, kalau yang tadi berarti ada dua main core-nya, dia harus mempelajari aplikasi dulu, kemudian dia juga harus tahu tentang dasar konsep awal, baru dia bisa apply di aplikasi tadi gitu. Jadi ada beberapa PR yang memang mungkin bagi saya selama ini itu cukup satu kendala ya. Mungkin ada cara-cara, bukan cara cep sih, artinya strategi-strategi yang kita bisa menstimulasi peserta, mahasiswa dengan menggunakan aplikasi yang lebih sederhana, tapi pembelajaran atau pendekatan STEM ini melalui e-learning ini juga bisa teroptimalkan. Terima kasih Pak Dr. Abdul Halim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Pertanyaan bagus sekali Bapak. Mungkin ini menjadi perwakilan pertanyaan banyak orang mungkin Bapak ya. Kepada Bapak kita persilahkan.
Oke, baik. Terima kasih Bu Susi atas pertanyaannya. Memang produk yang software aplikasi yang saya tunjukkan di sini itu sifatnya memang untuk engineering ya, desain dan engineering, base programnya, dan memang perlu kita buka beberapa kali mungkin untuk latihan itu akan jadi mungkin ya. Kalau kita tekun itu mungkin 2-3 hari sudah bisa kita gunakan untuk mendesain yang sederhana ya. Tetapi satu program yang familiar yang kita kenal PET simulasi ini, simulasi PET, ini saya kira program ini sangat lengkap, khususnya untuk bidang sains itu sudah ada semua, dan ini sangat mudah dipelajari untuk tingkat SMA, kemudian SMP. Saya lihat ada beberapa sekolah SMA yang sekolah favorit, sekolah bagus, itu sudah biasa dengan program ini. Tinggal mereka ambil sendiri di internet ya. Nah, kemudian program yang lain yang sudah ada Excel. Excel ini pun kalau kita pelajari lebih intens sedikit, lebih mendalam, ternyata dia bisa mendesain juga benda-benda yang sederhana, misalnya tabung segitiga, segi empat, kemudian macam-macam bentuk itu bisa didesain dengan Excel. Nah, kemudian satu lagi untuk pengetahuan dasar, memang ini tidak bisa, harus diberikan pengetahuan dasarnya. Nah, cuman untuk menggunakan apa namanya problem based learning ini, tentu ini masalah harus diberikan untuk jenis mahasiswa kita, harus diberikan masalahnya. Artinya kalau boleh saya katakan untuk ukuran mahasiswa kita itu 50-50. 50 harus dibantu. 50 mahasiswa sendiri yang dapat ya, termasuk pengetahuannya tentang software yang digunakan. Jadi kalau kita sendiri tidak memahami software ini, saya kira kita pilih yang sederhana lah, yang Excel ini. Excel ini pun kalau kita gunakan untuk perhitungan biasa, dia tidak nampak desainnya. Ya kan, produknya tidak bisa dihasilkan. Jadi mau tak mau desain engineeringnya atau optiknya itu menggunakan PET, itu yang paling sederhana ya. Cuman kekurangannya PET ini tidak menyediakan LKS atau LKM, LKPD tidak ada. Cuman kalau kita buka PET ini ada satu menu di dalamnya, dia beri semacam guided, petunjuk bagi guru. Bagaimana cara membuat sebuah lembar kerja siswa. Itu sudah ada di belakang program PET yang ditampilkan itu. Kalau kita buka ada di situ. Si perusahaan PET ini hanya menyediakan satu petunjuk bagaimana membangun lembar kerja siswa atau mahasiswa. Jadi kalau LKS sudah jadi, tidak ada di PET itu, harus dikembangkan oleh guru sendiri. Nah, itu kelemahannya. Makanya kalau PET itu kita berikan terus ke siswa seperti itu, tidak ada lembar kerja, ini hasilnya tidak optimal. Hasilnya tidak optimal. Karena tidak dipandu dengan lembar kerja siswa atau mahasiswa tadi. Nah, lembar kerja siswa itu harus dicoba dulu oleh dosen atau oleh guru, kemudian direvisi, setelah jadi lembar siswa itu disimpan di e-learning, tinggal diambil oleh mahasiswa, kemudian baru kita beri tugas kepada mahasiswa untuk menjalankan judul atau topik yang akan kita ajarkan. Nah, seperti itu. Jadi saya kira Bu Susi yang paling sederhana adalah PET. Excel ini kalau kita mau belajar lebih mendalam sedikit, dapat juga didesain untuk menghasilkan produk ya. Oke, saya kira begitu. Yang saya tahu yang paling sederhana itulah PET sekarang ya. Kalau dicari program yang lain, matematika itu juga agak sukar, dia butuh persamaan juga, agak sukar juga, dan produknya lebih banyak grafik. Masalahnya siswa kita atau mahasiswa membaca grafik ini agak susah. Memahami konsep dari grafik. Ini sebetulnya satu kendala juga ini ya. Kita tidak ada mata kuliah cara membaca grafik, kan tidak ada ya. Masalah juga gitu. Oke, saya kira gitu Bu Susi. Pengalaman saya selama mengajar dengan ini ya.
Baik, terima kasih banyak Bapak Halim. Terima kasih Bu Susi atas pertanyaan baik sekalinya. Silakan Bapak Ibu sekalian yang ingin bertanya kembali kepada Bapak Abdul Halim tentang penggunaan e-learning dalam masa pembelajaran pandemi ini. Ada banyak yang sudah diuraikan oleh Pak Abdul Halim tentang jenis-jenis software yang biasa atau lazim digunakan oleh dosen terutama dalam hal ini. Namun tidak tertutup ya, sekolah tingkat atas SMA masih sangat mungkin menggunakan berbagai software yang telah disebutkan tadi atau mungkin software-software yang lain. Kepada penanya kita persilahkan. Sepertinya sudah habis Bapak ini penanya kita.
Ya, oke.
Iya, Bapak. Mungkin Bapak ada ingin menambahkan sebelum kita tutup Bapak, karena kita sudah tidak ada penanya berikutnya. Apakah ada hal lain Bapak yang mungkin Bapak ingin sampaikan kepada kita?
Oke, baik. Ini sebagai kata penutup aja untuk semua kita yang sudah masuk ke Zoom ini. Memang yang pertama kita mau tidak mau ini tidak bisa lari dari keadaan ini walaupun nanti kondisinya sudah normal, tetapi ini satu media yang sangat efektif untuk pelaksanaan pembelajaran, khususnya menyampaikan konsep dan juga prosedural. Itu sangat efektif dengan menggunakan e-learning ya. Tapi untuk dimensi pengetahuan faktual, kemudian metakognisis, ini memang agak sukar dengan menggunakan e-learning ini. Nah, jadi bagus mungkin untuk solusi ke depan kita juga memadukan dua-dua. Kalau bentuk sikap karakter itu kita face to face. Kemudian kalau transfer pengetahuan dan juga konseptual boleh menggunakan e-learning. Jadi seperti saya katakan tadi, untuk SMA juga ada Excel, Pad ini juga bisa digunakan untuk SMA. Dia tidak terlalu sulit kalau kita pelajari dengan mungkin 1 hari, 2 hari, kita dapat menjalankan program-program tadi. Saya kira itu saja pesannya.
Terima kasih banyak Bapak. Terima kasih kita ucapkan kepada Bapak Dr. Abdul Halim atas presentasi beliau tentang penggunaan e-learning dalam masa pandemi ini. Berbagai hal yang telah diutarakan oleh Bapak Abdul Halim dan berbagai peluang, berbagai software yang bisa digunakan dalam proses pembelajaran. Namun sekali lagi Bapak Ibu sekalian, tentu dituntut kita sebagai dosen atau sebagai pengajar untuk update, untuk tetap belajar tentang bagaimana penggunaan aplikasi tersebut agar bisa kita terapkan di dalam proses pembelajaran. Terima kasih. Kita ucapkan sekali lagi kepada Bapak Abdul Halim, mohon maaf atas segala kekurangan dari pihak kita. Lebih kurang saya mohon maaf. Wabillahi taufiq wal hidayah. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Waktu tempat.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak Ibu sekalian, ini sebelum kita mengakhiri kegiatan pada hari ini, tolong untuk mengisi absennya, karena nanti sertifikatnya itu akan kita kirimkan via email yang dimasukkan pada absen tersebut. Jadi pastikan email yang Bapak Ibu masukkan itu email yang aktif digunakan. Demikian, terima kasih. Ya, untuk moderator hari ini Pak Azhari dan Ibu Wiwit, terima kasih sudah membantu sehingga kegiatan kita hari ini terlaksana dengan lancar. Jadi buat Bapak Ibu, karena kegiatan kita sudah selesai, boleh leave dari Zoom ini kalau sudah mengisi absensinya ya.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Kak, uang pasku.
Kak.
Ya, silakan.
Perkenalkan, nama saya Ahmad Kamil.
Majikan udah di kelas.
Assalamualaikum Ibu. Boleh saya izin bertanya? Iya Ibu, ada yang bisa kami bantu? Sertifikat itu tadi saya sudah terima melalui email, tapi itu tidak ada nama, apa memang diisi sendiri ya Bu ya? Iya, sertifikatnya memang kita kosongkan Ibu untuk menghindari kesalahan penulisan namanya ya. Baik Ibu. Kemudian Ibu, apakah nanti ini recordingnya ini bisa ada di YouTube untuk bisa diputar lagi? Ya boleh, nanti akan kami akses di YouTube channel kami. Boleh diakses di sini, di STEM Unsyah. Unsyah, baik. Ya, terima kasih Bu.
Assalamualaikum Bu.
Waalaikumsalam Bapak.
Bu, ini kan saya udah lihat sertifikatnya. Itu tahun 2019 ya Bu?
2021 Pak.
Kok di email saya kan 2019?
Ya. Oh, baik Pak. Mungkin ada kesalahan dari panitianya. Mohon maaf Bapak ya, kita kirim ulang ya.
Ya.
Baik, terima kasih Bapak sudah mengingatkan.
Ya, sama-sama.
Bu, mohon maaf Bu.
Ya.
Tadi jaringan saya kurang bagus, Ibu. Jadi saya nggak sempat dengar absennya itu di mana ya?
Absennya?
Iya, Bu.
Berikut link absennya Bapak, silakan diakses saja.
Oh iya, terima kasih banyak ya, Bu.
Baik.
Mohon izin bertanya, Bu. Mohon izin bertanya. Nomor sertifikat yang saya Mohon izin bertanya, Bu. Nomor sertifikat yang saya terima itu tahunnya 2019 ya, Bu?
Udah ganti ya? Udah. Bapak Ibu, saya mau izin sedikit promosi. Besok kita juga ada kegiatan STEM dengan kerjasama dengan Universitas 11 Maret. Mungkin saya share aja flyernya di sini ya. Mungkin Bapak Ibu besok juga bisa ikut karena kita akan ada pemateri juga dari Australia dan juga dari USA. Kemudian dari Pusat Riset STEM akan diwakilkan oleh Bapak Irwan di PhD.
Assalamualaikum, Bu. Assalamualaikum, Bu. Bu
Waalaikumsalam. Ya.
Sertifikatnya tanggal di bawahnya memang 2021, 23 November 2021.
Ya.
Number sertifikatnya itu memang 2019 ya?
Enggak, itu seharusnya 2021 Pak. Itu kesalahan dari kami perbaiki dulu untuk itu.
Oh ya, berarti semuanya Bu?
Iya Bapak, kita kirim ulang
ya.
untuk semuanya.
Oh ya, diulang lagi nanti Bu ya?
Iya, nggak apa-apa Bapak. Selama
banyak,
emailnya
ya.
aktif, iya baik.
Ya, Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam, terima kasih Pak.
Ya, terima kasih sama-sama Bu.
Mbak Bu,
iya.
apakah semua sertifikat sudah dikirim ke email masing-masing? Saya belum dapat ya Bu.
Belum dapat ya Pak ya? Atas nama siapa Pak?
Nama saya Agung Laksana, Bu. Agung Laksana.
Agung Laksana, ya kita cek dulu ya Pak. Nanti kalau seandainya belum kita kirim.
Boleh. AKUM ya Bu, Agung Laksana.
Oh iya baik.
Izin Bu, yang untuk sertifikat Ari Kiswanto Kennedy juga belum dikirim.
Oh boleh baik. Nanti kalau misalnya ada yang belum dikirim juga boleh menghubungi saya ya di nomor
Iya.
Baik. Nanti kalau misalnya masih ada yang belum dapat sertifikatnya, nanti boleh menghubungi saya di nomor 0853 5867 2213.
Oh, baik Bu, terima kasih ya Bu ya.
Baik. Ini Bapak Ibu flyer kegiatan untuk besok. Mungkin ada yang bisa bergabung dengan kegiatan Universitas 11 Maret. Terkait STEM juga ini, pembelajaran STEM untuk development teacher. Iya benar Ibu, kita keluarkan sekarang. Mohon untuk mengisi absensinya ya Ibu.
Linknya dikirim lagi Intan. Sekali lagi.
Berikut linknya. Ya.
Astagfirullah. Nanti pecah nanti. Nggak ada masa depan gue lagi aku.